set yourself up for success, right? And for me, setting myself up for success was multifold, right? But it kind of initially came from, I know my soul needs this because I struggle with winter. I need wide open spaces to be expansive in my creativity and my way of thinking about things. And what I didn't know was going to happen was I was going to use this time to do this deep excavation of this topic around influencing change. It comes back to like when we honor our truth, when we honor what we need and we give ourselves permission for that, amazing things happen. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. And I'm feeling good. Yes, I'm so excited for today's episode. We are talking about setting yourself up for success. And I'm going to share a few things around how important it is to give yourself permission for whatever it is you need. Permission to go on vacation, permission to immerse yourself in whatever problem you're trying to solve, permission to take a vacation even. So stay tuned because more is coming. But first, I want to share a little bit about myself in case you're new to this podcast. I'm Tosca DiMatteo. And you know what I do? I do makeovers. And when I say I do makeovers, I do like emotional makeovers for helping people feel better about themselves and about their careers. You can learn more about what I do at coachtosca.com. All right. So, oh my gosh, I'm recording this. It's February 28th as I'm recording this. And last night I just got back from a trip I took to Florida. I was there for like 4 days. I think it was 4 full days. And I'm back and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about for my next podcast? And then my friend was like, well, why don't you just talk about your trip? And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to talk about it because it was very intentional. First of all, it was me, myself, and I don't do that very often. I highly recommend it. You know, I realized it was like 2 years ago, I think, and I realized I had never really traveled on my own. And I had a taste of that. And I was like, you know what? This is not that bad. And then I did a retreat for like a week, like a self-led retreat thing. And that was a little bit different. I was around other people, but it was still very solo. And then this time, it was in January. So it was January. And, you know, to be honest, I went to Colombia in January. So I got away, but it wasn't my trip. It was somebody else's itinerary. You know, and it was a great trip. But it was the end of January and I realized, you know, I need beach time. Like I need sunshine. And I need ocean. It's just something that I crave. And I've learned that if I don't give myself that over the course of the winter, like by April, you do not want to talk to me. Like I am just going to be grumpy and miserable. So I was like, look, I need to get out there and I need to give myself permission to get the sun rays and the warmth because my body needs it. So that was like one factor, right? It was like, I have learned that this is important for me to do. The second piece was in my home life, there was a truth that in late February, my husband has kind of crunch time in his work that he does. And this is always a little hard for me because he kind of has to really, really focus on work. So it makes me feel a certain way. It's kind of like, you know, really related to kind of old wounds that I have. And so it's hard to deal with the fact that like you're living with somebody, but he's really, really, really preoccupied, right, for a few weeks at a time. So there was that second factor, right, which is just learning about what works for me and what doesn't. And there was this third piece around, well, you know what? It's really helpful for me to get out of my Brooklyn office, which is where this is being recorded right now. But I realized I need to get out of this office, you know, do a lot of work from here. And for my creative juices to flow, it's really helpful for me to have like wide open spaces and a different location. And I try to make this kind of part of my practice, right? Which is that I have to like make plans to kind of get out of Dodge every so often. I've learned That's usually like every 6 weeks, maybe, if I can, maybe 8 weeks. But once I get past like 8 weeks and I haven't really gone anywhere, like Ryan tries to avoid me. No, I'm just kidding. It's just tough. It's just tough because my soul, my heart needs a change of scenery. It's just what I have learned about myself. So we had all these three things, right, kind of at the same time. And, there was an inner critic in me, right, that was like, you shouldn't take that trip. First of all, you went to Colombia in January. And it's expensive to go to Florida in February, right? With all the recess and all the stuff that's going on. And you should go at a cheaper time and blah, blah, blah. But because I've been doing this work for a long time, like I quickly got back on track, which is to really honor the truth. And the truth was, I really felt like I needed this. I really felt like I needed something to look forward to get through kind of the harshness of the winter. And I thought that I was really going to need it for my business to kind of get into a creative space and break up the monotony of my typical day-to-days and my week-to-weeks. And so I did. I was like, F it. Like, I'm doing it. And I also looked at the truth of the finances, right? Because what I have done in the past is I have limited myself, or I have said no to what I really need because I'm telling myself a story about the financial aspect of it, which isn't true. And that was kind of my self-sabotaging excuse. That was my reason for not giving myself what I wanted. This time I'm like, I'm done with that, right? Like, I'm done with the lies that my inner critic tells me about what I can and can't do from a financial perspective and many other perspectives. But in this case, right? Financial. Here's the interesting thing. So I had like this laundry list, right, of stuff. I was like, yeah, I can do this and I can work on that. But actually, there was a huge opportunity that came through to put a proposal together for a keynote talk. This topic is one that I'm really passionate about, but I haven't done like that deep excavation in the context of which this conference is happening to really put together my thoughts and to really understand, like, what's my perspective on this topic? And that was really, really needed in order to come up with a keynote description. What I ended up spending 3 of the days doing is this deep excavation. And I used a book to help me do that. Actually, I'm going to give it a shout out. It's called Find Your Red Thread. It was super helpful in excavating the messaging, excavating what the problem was that I was trying to help people with and what my solution was and all that stuff. I spent literally 2 days on the beach going through the exercise of journaling what I felt about this topic, what I knew about it. Again, reading the book alongside my journaling to help prompt me to better understand my knowledge in this area and my experience in this area. By the end of day 2, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, wow, like I'm really burned out. Or like I've spent so much mental energy on this while I'm here. And yeah, it's been great that I'm like sitting on the beach doing it. But there was a part of me that was like, oh, but like I really wanted to just lay on the beach and just like stare off into the wild blue yonder and not think about anything, because not thinking about stuff actually helps with creativity if you didn't know. But that's not what happened. What happened was I was like, things were pouring out of me on the journal. And I was like, oh man, but I still haven't done this description. Right. So that day 3, I came up with like a keynote description. By the way, the topic is influencing change. It's not a secret. I don't have to keep it a secret. I'm a big fan, right, of questioning the status quo and driving change in our own lives, driving change in our organizations and in the world abroad, right? Like I'm very passionate about like how do we then influence the change that we seek within ourselves and externally. Anyway, so I did a description. I went back to the beach and I looked back at my notes. And I started pulling things out, right? Because I had, pages and pages of notes. So I just started kind of like pulling out the things that I felt like were powerful or strong or struck me. And then I went back to the hotel room and I did a whole nother stab at the description. And this time it felt really powerful. And I was really excited about it. It felt like, yes, this is truth. And this is what I'm passionate about helping people with. And I want to talk about this and I want to give people the tools, right? And this is like the end of day 3. I share all this to say that sometimes we need deep immersion to really work through something. Now, in my case, it was around this topic that I wanted to better understand for myself what my thoughts were. But for you, it might be something different. It might be, what is the nut you're trying to crack in your career? What is it you're trying to crack in the healing of your own journey? In your relationships, maybe there's a particular relationship you're struggling with and you're trying to figure out like how to unlock that or how to shift that. And like this deep immersion is critical to help us just be in the muck of it, to understand it, to ask ourselves the deeper questions and the deeper questions, because the goal is not on the surface. It's way below that. And so to be uninterrupted, right? To not even have to walk my dog, even though I missed her dearly, but to not even have to do that, to not have to make my breakfast and break away for that. I could just go to some counter around the corner. By the way, I found an amazing French bakery. I miss it already. But anyway. And so to not even have to put the mental energy towards like, what am I eating, right? Was exactly what I needed. And it doesn't mean like it was fun the whole time. And it doesn't mean I didn't have a headache or two because I was really working. But it was just something that I don't think I could have come to the same description, the same conclusion and output if I were doing that at home on my normal day-to-days or even over the weekend. I realized I really needed that particular creative process. And I need that for various different things. Actually, when I wrote the keynote on inner critics last year, I did the same thing. I went away for a few days, just me. I did have my dog with me and that was nice. But I was able to completely immerse and just mind dump some stuff and ask myself the deeper questions. So I'm belaboring this point a little bit because I think there's resistance to something like this because it requires time and energy and resource. Although I think you can do this in a number of different ways, like a house swap if you need to, right? Like if you don't have like the money in the bucket for the vacation or for the trip, get creative. There's other ways to change scenery and get what you need. So let's just be expansive about that, right? We have these responsibilities and we have these inner critics that tell us we can't, we shouldn't, it's too much. And I really want to do this episode to focus on set yourself up for success, right? And for me, setting myself up for success was multifold, right? But it kind of initially came from, I know my soul needs this because I struggle with winter. I need wide open spaces to be expansive in my creativity and my way of thinking about things. And what I didn't know was going to happen was I was going to use this time to do this deep excavation of this topic around influencing change. It comes back to like when we honor our truth, when we honor what we need and we give ourselves permission for that, amazing things happen. Amazing things happen. And I do feel that way. And here's the other piece about what I did. So I got this like second description. And then I was like, well, you know what? I have been kind of in my own vacuum for the past few days. So I reached out to some folks that I think are amazing writers and advocates also of my work. And I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I got incredible input. So thank you to those folks. You know who you are. And that was like everything. It was like I had that like, call it 90%. And I needed that 10% of support to get me over the edge. And that's the other part, right? This bigger theme of how do you set yourself up for success and give yourself what you need. And the magic will unfold, right? Because I set myself up for success in certain ways, and then it set me up actually in ways that I couldn't have imagined. I worked over a weekend span, but here I am, and I'm back, and I'm feeling motivated, And I'm definitely motivated to get my hair cut. Sorry, I'm looking at myself like, right, I'm doing the video version of this too, which will eventually be on YouTube once I get my ducks in a row. But here I am because I'm feeling good, because I'm feeling good about what I was able to produce. And I'm feeling good about I was able to do it in an environment that felt good, that my feet were in the sand. And I want to ask you as you're listening to this, what permission do you need to grant for yourself? What is it you need to set yourself up for success for the next time horizon? And that time horizon could be the next 24 hours, it could be the next 3 months, it could be the rest of the year. But I think that there's a knowing within you already. You already know what you need. If you give yourself time to explore it, and maybe it will take you a few days of sitting with yourself, of getting quiet. Maybe it will take a few days of journaling and observing what's going on in your life. But I guarantee you, you already know what you need. It's just got to come out. And if you're really struggling with it, feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me very easily. You go to Coach Tosca or you go to toscadimatteo.com/contact. And there's a million ways you can get a hold of me. So I really want this for you. I want you to honor what you need and set yourself up for success. And it makes me think of this moment, right? Like last August, I invested quite a bit in a wardrobe for my keynotes because I was setting myself up for success, for more gigs and more opportunities. And guess what? I have one in June that was recently booked. I'm super excited about. I've already got the outfits. I don't even have to worry about it because I set myself up. And now all I got to worry about is doing a kick-ass job and working on my talk for this particular audience. And I'm super jazzed. So all the ways that you have to set yourself up for success. Maybe it's the wardrobe. Maybe it's, the spring cleaning plan. Maybe it's getting some support in some area of your life to help you break free or to free yourself from the burden of the thing that's driving you crazy. Let's take a quick moment to look at some of these micro things that we can do to set ourselves up for success. A big part of what we need as leaders in our organizations or as leaders in our own homes is to really honor, again, like what we need and what's going to set us up for what we're trying to do. This could look like making sure that when you're setting up meetings, you're doing it for a time that really works for you. So if you're not a morning person, maybe don't schedule that important call with your boss at 8 a.m. Or if you have to have a conversation with your significant other, or your spouse, or a dear friend, do it maybe after you've eaten and after you've nourished yourself versus at a time where maybe you're going to be stressed out or you're going to be distracted. These are the kinds of things that we can do, these micro steps of how do we set ourselves up for success. This might sound really silly, guys, but are we taking the bathroom break before we step into the 2-hour meeting, which basically is asking ourselves, what do I need right now in order to support me in doing what it is that I want to do or the outcome that I'm looking for. Setting yourself up for success could look like I'm going to put on the outfit that makes me feel powerful because I have this really important conversation or this meeting I'm going to lead. That is all part of setting yourself up for success. So one practice you could start for yourself even is at the start of every day, you ask yourself, what's my intention for the day, or what is it that I'm trying to accomplish and what will set me up for success for that? For those of you who might be interviewing, for example, I'm often recommending my clients ask themselves what will set them up for the vibe that they want to be in and for the conversation that they want to have. And that could look like giving yourself a half an hour or even hour space before your interview starts to get your space ready for you to walk outside, connect with nature, whatever it is, right? So that you're clearing and in a great headspace before you get on that interview. Those are the types of things where it's like, what will set you up? Because sometimes we don't even think about that. And then we're in a scuttlebutt and we just got off of this hot and heavy meeting. And then all of a sudden you got to hop into an interview. That's That's not ideal. And it may have to happen from time to time, maybe things out of your control, but the more that we can honor what do we have to choose for ourselves, the better our outcomes will be every time. So I hope this was helpful for you just to think a little bit more deeply about what it can look like on this micro basis to set yourself up for success, because it is these micro actions that help us get to where we want to be. So start small. Doesn't have to be the big vacation plan or the big retreat plan or creative outlet plan, but it can just be what's going to set me up for the rest of the day for what it is I want to achieve or how I want to feel. And I think that when you do this, you will get way more than you expected. Like, this is the thing that unlocks magic in my mind. When you honor your needs, when you set your boundaries, when you don't listen to the inner critics, but you choose your truth and the truth, that's when magical things happen. You heard it here. It's basically a guarantee. you can let me know if you feel otherwise. I'm super excited that I gave myself this permission. And look, it wasn't all super roses. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had some loud neighbors in the hotel. I had some night's sleep that wasn't great. But isn't that life, right? You take the good with the bad and you keep it moving. But I definitely had the bright spots, and I will keep you posted about this keynote. I really hope I land it because it just feels so freaking aligned with the work that I do and how I want to support people. So anyway, hey, if you want to send a little prayer out into the universe, feel free to do that. I believe in positive vibes helping our manifestations, So yes, the big takeaways here are: set yourself up for success. Give yourself permission to immerse yourself in what it is you're working through or need to decipher or need to discern for yourself. And don't forget to reach out for support at the right times in that journey. I'm excited also to tell you that tomorrow I have my very first interview for the podcast. So that will be coming out soon, I'm sure. And, just kind of keeping it dynamic here. And as a reminder, I am doing these Tosca All Access episodes. One was already launched. So if you haven't listened to it, you can go back. It's called All Access Overcoming Networking Anxiety. So if you have a question that you want me to answer and dig into, you can submit that question. You can email me at breakthrough@toscadimatteo.com or go to my contact page on my website, toscadimatteo.com/contact, or check out the link in the show notes that can link you to an anonymous questionnaire to ask your question. I love doing those because it just gives me some nice context and fodder to help the listeners, to help you guys with whatever you're dealing with. Well, by the time you listen to this, we are going to be in the early days of March. I always look at new months as opportunities for new beginnings, for new energy, to call in what you want. And so permission granted for your new beginning if that's what you're needing right now. It's been such a pleasure to be with you in the lab. I look forward to hearing from you and how this resonates. And if you feel compelled, please follow, rate, and review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, because that really helps get these messages out to the folks who need it. And I think there's a lot of them out there. So cheers to you. Cheers to the permission you are ready to grant yourself. I fully support you and celebrate you for that. And I look forward to finding out what magic happens for you as a result. Thanks, as always, for coming to the lab, and ciao for now.